Big Apple Blitz with Anthony Rivardo and Matt O'Leary.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Big Apple Blitz. What's going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Anthony Rivardo. Anthony back on the East Coast, and one of our teams had a massive change to their organization since we last spoke.
Yeah, and I also need to announce a major change. I am no longer talking New York Giants. It's bolt up season, baby. I'm a Chargers fan.
Let's go.
No, just kidding. It's still the Big Apple Blitz, still here to talk about the Giants, even though they make me miserable every week. Jets fans, I know you can relate. Both teams have a lot to be miserable about this week, with some ridiculous headlines surfacing for both the Jets and the Giants. But for the Jets in particular, oh my God, bombshell reports, just the epitome of ridiculousness for us to discuss today.
Yeah, so we'll start with the big one on Tuesday. It feels like I think Woody Johnson just likes making decisions on Tuesday. That's when Saleh was fired. I'm pretty sure they traded for Devontae Adams on a Tuesday. And then Joe Douglas gets fired on a Tuesday before the Jets start the bye. Now, we'll start there and then get into the bombshell article that came out later in the night after this. Joe Douglas was going to lose his job at the end of the year anyway. I think the timing was a little bit bizarre on this, but with his contract coming to a close at the end of the year, I think, and you tell me if you feel otherwise, I think this was Woody trying to control the narrative that the Jets are moving on from Douglas and not the other way around, that Douglas is kind of just, that he's stepping away after the contract expires. It's no, the Jets decided we're going to move on from the GM.
Yeah, I think that makes plenty of sense. And while there's certainly a lot to criticize the Jets for, and Woody Johnson in particular, I do kind of side with the argument of fire quickly, get rid of these guys sooner rather than later. Like, I was a proponent of moving on from Robert Saleh when they did. I think that with Joe Douglas, it's a little bit more nuanced because he's had many opportunities to get it right. But in some respects, I feel like he did get it right at times. Like, he did draft well. He did find some serious talent, but overall the roster still wasn't good enough to compete. And I do think that he deserves a lot of the blame for the problems within the coaching, because the GM needs to evaluate those things and make sure that he helps hire the right people. So overall, I get why he was fired, and I don't necessarily have any quarrel with it. I think that doing it before the end of the season is always a better option because it gives you more time to evaluate and get ready to hire the right guy. So I really have no problem with the move. It's just everything surrounding the move and everything that went into it and that's going to fall out after it is what's problematic for the Jets. But I do agree with the decision to move on from Joe Douglas at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's, to me, not a huge deal that they did it now versus waiting an additional 6 weeks. You bring up a good point. Like, the Douglas discussion is not so black and white, and you just look at the record, which is bad, by the way. 30-64 is really, really bad. And he deserves blame for that. But he did get some talent in here. It's not like a John Idzik or Mike McCagnon, the two GMs who were before Joe Douglas. He wasn't necessarily as bad as those guys, even though the record may indicate that he was as bad or worse. But I think he's probably best suited as a scout, because there's some things that, like, he could find talent, but I don't know if he really did a good job building a team that has an identity. Like, there's a lot of pieces here and there's clearly talent, but through pretty much his entire tenure, the Jets never had an identity on offense, and defensively they were obviously very good under Robert Saleh, but I think some mid-round misses, and also missing so poorly in his first two drafts with Mekhi Becton and then Zach Wilson really was the beginning of the end. He was playing catch up from there and never really was able to fix either of those two things.
Yeah, and Unfortunately, that kind of reminds me of somebody that I know from across the other side of the stadium playing catch up after some struggles in those beginning draft classes. Kind of reminds me of Joe Shane, and I wonder if something like this could play out for him and the New York Giants, considering, I mean, you could argue that he missed on both of those two top 10 picks that he had with Evan Neal and maybe Kayvon Thibodeau. Thibodeau good, but probably not a top 5 player. And then another bad draft class in 23. And here we are in 24, a great draft class. And I feel like it's kind of been the same with Joe Douglas, maybe a little bit too little, too late. Like he ended up finding the talent in those later drafts. He, of course, grabbed Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson, but was it too little, too late? Breece Hall, again, found talent, but the foundation that he set for this roster prior to adding those top level talents wasn't strong enough to support the house that he built on top, unfortunately. And I think that's kind of like you hit it on the head right there, basically saying it was the beginning of the roster construction that really created the demise for the end of the roster construction.
Right. Because missing on Zach Wilson, whether right or wrong, like you agreed with it at the time, like I thought the Jets should have drafted a quarterback. I didn't think it made sense to give Sam Darnold his 5th-year option after major question marks in his first 3 years, and you have an opportunity with the 2nd overall pick. Like I understand why they went quarterback, but at the end of the day, a miss is still a miss. And he had to then pivot and sell his soul for Aaron Rodgers, which unfortunately didn't work. And then this kind of gets into the article that comes out later, which indicates a lot of Woody Johnson meddling and a lot of Woody Johnson getting involved. What were your thoughts on that article and some of your bigger takeaways?
Biggest takeaway is that the owner, like we've all speculated and pretty much known, is far too involved, not letting the football guys do the football jobs. And that's the worst thing for an owner to do, in my opinion. And I think in the opinion of many. Listen, it's one thing to be an involved owner, kind of like John Mara of the New York Giants. He's very involved, but he doesn't dictate exactly what happens. He doesn't leave threats out there on the table for the general manager, like you have to do this or this will happen. He doesn't block the GM from hiring guys that he wants in his front office. Like this is stuff that even the most meddling owners, like some people think John Mara meddles a lot, like I said, but he doesn't meddle like this. This is to another extreme. This is far past what I ever imagined was going on in the New York Jets front office. Like we kind of knew that there was dysfunction. We knew things weren't a pretty picture, but man, we didn't know that it was this ugly of a painting. So really bad stuff. And I honestly, if I'm the Jets, I'm just hoping that Woody Johnson gets put into the president's cabinet and doesn't have as much involvement anymore. Like just get out of the front office, get out of here, go do your thing in the White House and just leave us to be. I know that it's still probably not left in the greatest hands because I think it then goes to his brother. And so it's just pretty much still a family business. And I hate family businesses for football teams. I've hated it for the New York Giants. It leads to an immense amount of nepotism and then creates a cycle of just dysfunction and power struggling dynamics year in and year out, which is what we've seen with the Jets and the Giants for several decades, basically. So it's all just frustrating if you are a Jets fan. And I think that it's kind of disheartening to know that because it's kind of a family business, there might not be a light in a nearby end of a tunnel. It might take a while to get out of this one. But again, like I said, if I'm a Jets fan, I'm just hoping that this guy goes to the White House and basically FOs out of here.
Yeah, the issue, like you mentioned, is it does go to Christopher Johnson, and Christopher Johnson was wowed by a Peyton Manning phone call and decided to hire Adam Gase. So, like, it's you're happy because Woody Johnson is gone, which I think is a positive in and of itself. But they also were really bad under Christopher Johnson too. Like, it's not the greatest of situations. While you were bringing up the nepotism, it got me thinking of a report that came out last night from Tony Pauline. We can get back into the article in a second, but it just sparked this thought here, where he shares that I can add to this report from Breer. It's been jokingly mentioned for several years in league circles that Woody's son, Brick Johnson, is the de facto GM of the Jets, specifically when it comes to internet influences decision-making, which is exactly what took place. So this kid, Brick Johnson, is ruining my life. His dad's name is, like, how many penis jokes can we make here with Woody Johnson and Brick Johnson as like the two that are running this? Like, this is just a preposterous picture. How is this real?
Dude, when I read the tweet, I assumed Brick Johnson was a grown adult, like in his
No.
40s, and then you pulled up this picture, and that was the last thing that I expected to see
Yeah.
was some 20-year-old on the phone in the war room.
Yeah, I think he's talking to Zach Wilson. I think he was like 14 when they drafted Zach Wilson. So,
Oh my God, that's
so he's like
hysterical.
18 now, maybe. Can you picture him going up to his dad and being like, "Hey," because apparently Woody Johnson was the one who wanted the Jets to bench Tony Adams this past week, their free safety. Like, I'm shocked that Woody Johnson even knows who Tony Adams is. But can you picture Brick Johnson going up and be like, "Hey, I saw this article on Jet X Factor. Tony Adams is missing like 20% of his tackles. We got to get him out of there." And then now Jeff Ulbricht's like, Woody goes to Jeff Ulbricht and like, we gotta get this guy out of here. We got to go Jalen Mills and Chuck Clark this week.
Yeah, right. Brick Johnson watched a Theo Johnson or a Theo Ash, whatever that NFL TikTok scouter is. Watched a little breakdown on Zach Wilson and decided he was the man of the future.
This is it. This is the duo that is ruining my life. These two, Brick Johnson and Woody Johnson.
This is hysterical. This is the part of the report that I missed. I didn't know that this kid was running the team. This is honestly insane to me to learn live on this show. This is very funny. I'll believe the allegation this time around. I think there's meaning to this one. And listen, Brick Johnson, I don't think that we would be complaining if he wasn't shooting bricks. He's shooting bricks at the backboard every single time. So yeah, I don't know. But hey, one positive that we could take away from this, man. I'm gonna spin this.
Okay.
If this is internet influencing Brick Johnson's decisions, the louder you are, the more probable it is that the moves you want made will be made. So raise your voice, Matt. Get loud on the internet and get those moves made. You are the general manager of the New York Jets.
Look at this profile picture.
I mean, yeah, there's not much I could say to that.
But you're right. Like, yeah, maybe I should just be speaking up. So, you know, when fans are like, it doesn't like stop tweeting that Woody Johnson should sell the Jets or like hire a VP of football, you know, personnel or whatever. Apparently they were listening to the Jet fans who were begging for Tyron Smith and Mike Williams. That was part of this article.
I mean, that makes sense. I think it was NYJ Matt sent the bagel, right? And it was very loud, and then it happened. So, I mean, it is true. Like when you can predict, when you're right on all of your predictions on what the team is going to do in the offseason, that's not because you know the team so well. That's because the team is actually listening to you. And I've learned that in the past. I think Dave Gettleman as well, when he was the GM of the Giants, was influenced by internet decision makers. Unfortunately, myself included, because very early on that offseason, I was screaming from the loudest rooftops that Kenny Golladay was a perfect signing for the Giants. And then the Giants got swindled into paying Kenny Golladay a ridiculous amount of money after I basically turned the whole internet against Dave Gettleman if he didn't sign Kenny Golladay. I think these things do happen, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm not saying I got Kenny Golladay signed, but I think that when somebody gets loud on the internet and then the whole community rallies around that one idea, the GMs and the decision makers in the front office take notice of that. And again, not to pull too much from the Giants. I know we're talking Jets, but I think it ties in. We all watched the Hard Knocks with the New York Giants this offseason, and there were segments where they had Joe Shane's assistant, I can't remember his name, but they literally showed him scrolling on Twitter, seeing what fans are saying, and then informing Joe Shane what to say at his press conference based on what was being said on the internet. So if they're using Twitter and the internet to dictate what's said in the press conferences, and again, I know this is the Giants Hard Knocks, but every team is probably doing the same thing. If they're using the internet to dictate what should and shouldn't be said in the press conferences, they're probably also using the internet to dictate what moves should and shouldn't be made in the front office. So I think there is a lot of truth to this kind of stuff. I think there is many different instances that you can point to where both the Giants and the Jets heard the noise from their fans and made a decision accordingly. And that's not always the best thing to do. Now, it's not always the worst thing to do. I do think sometimes the fans are right about certain things, myself included. I think I've been right about a whole lot for the Giants in the past year. But listen, there's certain things that you got to block out the noise and you can't listen to the fans on. And I think that the Jets probably listened to the fans a little bit too much recently and didn't let the football guys do the football jobs because ownership is too in tune with the internet. So it's unfortunate to see. This is really how you kill a franchise at the end of the day, is you just don't run it like a business. These teams need to be ran like businesses. And right now the Jets are not being run like a legitimate football operation. They're being run like a family-owned business that, it's just dysfunctional mess is really what I'm getting at.
It's a sick joke is really what it is. By the way, I like the Kenny Galladay signings, if that makes you feel any better for the Giants. So I don't think you were alone.
My hot take on the Kenny Galladay signing, I don't think the guy was actually that bad. I think that he just hated playing with Daniel Jones and he gave up. Like, that's how I feel about it.
Okay.
That's been my hot take, because, dude, look at what he put on film just even the year prior while he was injured. All of it disappeared the next year. You're telling me the man lost every ounce of talent in his body? I don't buy it. Same thing happened with Darren Waller. I don't buy it. I think once we get a legitimate quarterback, watch how these free agent signings impact this team.
It's gonna turn it around. By the way, we've been spending a lot of time on Woody Johnson, and rightfully so in this segment. Can I share my theory with you on Woody Johnson and what's going to happen next with this team?
I'm all ears.
I really think they're going to hire Rex Ryan to be the head coach again. Have you seen the campaigning that Rex Ryan's been doing on social media this week to get this job?
I've seen it, but I'm very curious to know how you would feel about that.
Not great. I don't think it's been about 15 years since he was a good head coach in this league. And I appreciate Rex for giving me my two favorite years of Jets fandom in 2009 and 2010. It was a lot of fun when they were good, but I think just some Jet fans forget how that ended and how bad he was in Buffalo. And once he got his hands on the personnel of that roster is when things started to turn, because Eric Mangini and Mike Tannenbaum built a really, really good team the few years before Rex got there. And they drafted really well. And then they started allowing, Rex to take some guys. And then you're like getting the Louisville Slugger in 2014. What the hell was his name? The safety Calvin Pryor, or you end up drafting John Connor, a fullback, and trade for Tim Tebow and just a bunch of weird shit. So he is on the campaign trail really hard right now. I think he's doing a really good job of trying to force Woody Johnson's hand, and Woody does love Rex, by the way. Woody, there was a quote that was recircling from 2014 where Rex Ryan is like, Woody Johnson would have let me coach for 20 years if it was up to him, but he's like, they know that they'd never be able to hire a general manager if they forced another one to keep me.
Yeah, and I mean, that makes sense. And listen, I've been making that argument about the Giants recently, the forcing of head coaches upon general managers and the kind of problems that creates in an organization. But it is a very curious quote, and it is one to circle. And I do want to drop my hot take here because,
Okay.
like, I get what you're saying. I get why you're against it. I would be for it. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that when you're looking at this cycle of potential head coaches that could be coming out, I don't see any of these top guys having a legitimate interest in coaching the New York Jets personally. I think there's way too much dysfunction. I think when you think of a guy like, who are the hot names? Bobby Slowick, Ben Johnson, all of these top dogs who are offensive geniuses, right? These are the guys that Jets fans are going to want. But realistically, and I say the same thing to Giants fans, there is so much dysfunction in these two organizations that sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and you're going to end up hiring somebody who isn't fully committed to being here or doesn't like the company structure, and it's not going to work out. So at least with Rex Ryan, my argument here would be, sure, the ceiling isn't as high as if you went and you hired one of these offensive masterminds who's a great coordinator across the league somewhere. The ceiling isn't as high, and maybe you're not going to find as much success. But what I think you do is you raise the floor and at least become better in a short term and can use Rex Ryan as a bridge head coach. That would be my argument for it. And I know I'm playing devil's advocate, and I know this is probably not what Jets fans want to hear, but I also think it's because I have an outside perspective and I don't have the bruised and battered relationship from the past with Rex Ryan. So just looking at it objectively from an outside perspective, I think the Jets are well positioned to have a bridge head coach that then leads them into a succession plan and a better head coach down the line in 2 or 3 years' time. And I think Rex Ryan could do a great job of resetting the company culture, maybe fixing some of those things in the front office because he does have a good relationship with the Johnson family. I think that there is a lot to pull from here that could be positive. Now, would he be my first choice? No, I would not, bend over backwards to bring Rex Ryan back to New York and make him the head coach of the Jets. But if we get through the process of over the course of the rest of the season, we see who's available as a head coach candidate in the offseason. I don't think that he would be near the bottom of the short list. I think he would be closer to the top for me for the New York Jets, just because I think he could reset the culture and serve as a solid bridge over the next 2 years.
Rex Ryan and Aaron Rodgers are going to lead the most electric 8-9 season of all time in 2025.
Well, I don't think Rex Ryan would maintain Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he's
been talking it up, man. He's like, they don't have to. His quote today, when he was on Pardon My Take today, and his quote today was, "I would have that place fixed in about 2 minutes time, and that's the most talented roster." He was like, "That's a better roster than any of the ones that I had." And he had
I don't disagree with him, though. I don't really disagree. Like, I do think this roster is tremendously talented. I've said that all year long. I think there's been a lot of coaching problems, and I think Aaron Rodgers has had some problems. But here's my thing. Rex Ryan is no bullshit. He's not going to let Aaron Rodgers hire his friend as the OC and run the offense. I think he's going to come in and say, hey, Rodgers, listen, you're a future Hall of Famer and all that stuff, but this is my team, my organization, my culture. I'm running it how I want, so you're going to play quarterback or you're going to go. And I think Rex Ryan would be one of the only guys to step in and have the balls to do that to Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers. So therefore, you're getting a culture reset, and you might actually fix Aaron Rodgers in the process and spark something. You might fix the offense. So I don't know. Again, it's not my number one, and I know we might be losing some Jets viewers right now with me campaigning on this. But again, outside perspective, I think is important. And from the outside looking in, this is a dysfunctional team that needs a culture reset, and I think Rex Ryan could do that just as good as anybody.
Yeah, it's split. So you're not losing. There's there are some who are very in on the idea of Rex Ryan. And he did mention too, by the way, in this, he went on like a 4-minute monologue about why he deserves this job on the show. And something he said is the offense is about 20 years too old. He's like, we got to get that going in a different direction. So you're not wrong in things that he would make changes with. It just, I'm a little bit worried about the circus that might come with it. Rex Ryan feels like a circus act hire.
Absolutely. I mean, he is a circus act hire, but at the same time, he's a circus in the media, but I feel like in the locker room, he gets things straightened out. Like, he is a no nonsense, no BS. Like, he's a culture setter. And that's the trait that I'm going to keep falling back to here. And I think that that's what the Jets need, is just a reset in the culture. So I don't hate this idea. Like, the more we're kind of talking about it, the more I might even be convincing myself. So I know maybe that's probably not what you want to hear, but listen, I think that, especially you saying that I didn't hear that quote that he said that the offense is 20 years too old. But again, I mean, that indicates to me that he's going to bring in some new young blood in the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, reboot and reset, and make sure that Aaron Rodgers either falls in line or they get a new quarterback. So yeah, I don't hate this idea. I think that there is a lot to like. Now, again, it's not perfect, and you're right. It definitely comes with its circus acts, but I think let's look at the options once we get towards week 17 and the hiring cycle. And, he might make a lot of sense for this team personally.
I texted you the link for you to watch after we do our show here, because I think you're going to like what he's saying. So we can watch and maybe discuss at length on Monday, because
for sure,
God knows what's going to happen here. But we spent a long time. We spent about 25 minutes on the Jets here. We got to get into the Giants stuff too. And there's a lot to get into. Tommy DeVito starting. We've talked about the change that the Giants made at the quarterback spot earlier in the week. And Daniel Jones wrote a prepared statement and was playing scout team safety. And there's a lot of takes flying around. And I wanted to figure out where you stand and where Giants fans stand on this.
I can't understand the victimization of this guy. 6 years he was given endless opportunities and chances, second chances, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th chances handed to Daniel Jones over and over. Man, if I was that bad at my job for that long, I wouldn't have the job for that long. And I think that goes for 99% of the workforce in the United States of America. Daniel Jones got more privileges. He got more opportunities than anybody. I'm not going to feel bad for him that he was benched. And are we serious with the prepared, choked up statement because you got benched? You are not a future Hall of Famer like Eli Manning. This is not the same thing. You didn't have an immense start streak that's one for the history books going on before you got benched. You were terrible. Your team is 2-8, and you are a big reason why, and you were benched because of that. Benched accordingly. Like, there are consequences for your actions. You have to hold people accountable in a working setting, and this is a business. This is a job for Daniel Jones, and he hasn't been performing well at his job, and he's been getting overpaid significantly. So it all makes sense to me. I think the benching is too little too late. It should have happened long ago. And circling back to GMs listening to fans and their opinions, my God, do I wish Joe Shane listened to me when I screamed and pounded the table to give this guy the goddamn franchise tag in 2023. I said, give him the franchise tag, sign Saquon Barkley to a 3-year contract, guarantee the first 2 years of the contract, and then if you want to, you can cut him after the second year. So that third year is basically an option, but give him the franchise tag and give yourself flexibility. Didn't do that, and here we are all these years later, 2 years later, longest 2 years of my goddamn life watching Daniel Jones suffer and struggle, and I've suffered accordingly. So I don't have any empathy for him. I don't feel bad. Everybody's saying, how can you not feel bad when this kid is up there and blah, blah, blah. First of all, he's not a kid. He's like 28 years old. He's a fully grown man who's failed at his job for 6 years. I don't feel bad. He gets paid generational wealth to be a bad quarterback, and I'm supposed to feel bad for this guy? Like he's some sort of victim here? Nah, miss me with all that shit. The scout team safety thing is so blown out of proportion. It's not even funny. I know the exact reporter who started it, and I know exactly what he was trying to do when he sent that out there. Ridiculous that he sent that tweet out in the manner that he did to spark such controversy. Scout team safety does not mean he was playing defensive back. It means that while the defense was off the field, he stood in the defensive backfield to make sure that the offense was in the right position. There were no defenders on the field. Scout team safety literally just means he was looking at the field and basically playing offensive coordinator for 2 seconds. That's what that really means. Just making sure that the slot receiver is in the right spot and the tight end is in the same spot that he's supposed to be. That's what scout team safety is. He did not actually play safety. The way that the media ran with that was absolutely ridiculous. No empathy for the guy. You made over $100 million over the last 6 years with the New York Giants. Just go FO somewhere else and go play backup quarterback or go be an accountant or something.
Blink twice if it was Pat Leonard. Was it? No?
Not this time.
Okay. So a different one. I don't know who that would have been my guess, but I don't know.
I mean, that's a safe guess. It was Art Stapleton, and he tried to walk it back this morning. I saw it on Twitter. He was basically saying this got blown out of proportion. I reported it for the way that I did, but he was like trying to defend it. And I'm like, okay, so you're exposing that you were the guy that created this media shitstorm out of nowhere, knowing what you were doing, because he literally explains in the tweet that he knows that scout team safety does not mean what everybody took it to mean, but he still is the one that tweeted it. So frustrating stuff. The fact that people were like, oh, they're embarrassing Daniel Jones by making him play safety. He did not play safety, and they are not embarrassing him because he is a free man with free will who is actively choosing to be there at practice and do his job. He could tell them, please release me. I don't want to do this job anymore. I'm going home. And he could absolutely go ahead and do that, and the Giants wouldn't bat an eye. He chose to go to practice, put on his uniform, and do his job. And we're supposed to feel bad for him because he chose to do his job that he gets paid $40 million to do? Fuck your feelings. Fuck your embarrassment. I don't give a shit. You chose to do it. So don't go stand up there and cry and read off a prepared statement like your feelings were hurt. I don't care about your feelings. I care about, how about this, man? I always think about this. 6 years of losing, terrible football. How about the Giants fans that died in that time just hoping to see their team win football games again? And I'm supposed to feel bad for the $40 million quarterback that's not going to play again for the team? Hell no. I care about the fans who missed out on great memories for 6 years. That's who I care about. Saquon Barkley said it best, and I fall back to this quote all the time. The fans were here way before you guys. They were going to be here way long after you guys. The players, that is. The guys being the players. Daniel Jones, I was a fan of this team before you got here. I'm going to be a fan of the team as soon as you get cut, hopefully later on today. So I don't really care about your feelings. I care about the feelings of all the other fans around me who have been desperate to watch this team win football games. That's all that matters at the end of the day. And this is the first time in the last 6 years that I feel like the New York Giants organization finally understands that, to put the fans' feelings first rather than the players.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. I went back. I wanted to find the tweet, and I did. And one of the top replies was too good not to share. DJ coming into practice tomorrow. Christopher Moltisanti in the neck brace. That is too perfect. But you're spot on. They made way too big of a deal out of that. Teams do that all the time, and like it's not like he's backpedaling and trying to cover Theo Johnson or something like that. Like they're standing there to line up in practice. It was so stupid.
Yeah, he did no cardio in that moment that he was playing scout team safety. Zero cardio. He stood there and looked at the team and said, yeah, Dable, everything looks good. They're all lined up in the right spot. Good job. That's all he did. He didn't do any cardio. He didn't run. He didn't jog. He didn't even walk. He stood there for 35 seconds.
Holy shit.
Did they cut him? Let's go! Christmas has come early.
41 seconds ago.
Oh my God.
Jordan Schultz breaking. The Giants are releasing quarterback Daniel Jones. Sources tell NFL on Fox. I'm told Jones asked for his release and the team is granting it after his benching. Wow.
Fucking Lord.
Was not expecting that live on the show. You were like, I hope they cut him later today. I didn't think you probably didn't mean like 90 seconds after you said that.
I meant right now. I snap my fingers and I get shit done, boys. I get it done. I said like 3 weeks ago that if they cut him, they'll save $750,000. Why don't they just do it? So here we are.
Wow. I can't believe that it's over. Like, I don't know. I thought they'd play the game, like maybe do the Derek Carr where he doesn't show up. But he's still on the team the last little bit. This is pretty nuts, man. Your thoughts? Obviously, you had the positive reaction, but this is the right move for this time.
This is the right move. Get the circus out of here. Get the big show. Like, get it done. Just the distractions that they're creating by holding on to him for no reason. Just get him off this team. Let him go. Move on. Start the new era. This is the right thing to do. This has always been the right thing to do. I am elated. Like, I'm finally ready to move on from the Daniel Jones era, the 6 years of misery. We're moving on. This is fantastic news to me.
Yeah, we have a statement from John Mara. He says that Daniel came to see me this morning and asked if we would release him. We mutually agreed that would be best for him and for the team. Daniel has been a great representative of our organization, first class in every way. His handling of the situation yesterday exemplifies just that. We are all disappointed in how things have worked out. We hold Daniel in high regard and having a great appreciation for him. We wish him nothing but the best in the future.
I think that's a good statement. And listen, I don't disagree with anything that he said. Daniel Jones, good person off the field. Hope the best for him. Happy that he's getting a new opportunity and he gets to be signed elsewhere. It's a classy move for both parties. This is exactly how it should have been. But man, I'm happy about it. Like, this is best for all parties involved. This is best for Giants fans. This is best for the organization, and it's best for Daniel Jones. This is a good moment, a great moment for this franchise.
It is. And again, I'm very surprised that we got the news now. Didn't think it was something that they would do. Wow. All right. Anything else that you want to get into Giants wise, Daniel Jones wise? Where do you want to take this? I wasn't expecting that.
It's cutlet season, baby.
Cutlet season. He's going to win a few games to ruin the tank. What do we think? The Giants have the third pick right now. Jets benefited greatly from the Cleveland Browns win last night. They jump up from 7-6. Jets have a game against the Jaguars in a few weeks, a loss against Jacksonville. Who knows? Maybe the Jets will be jumping the Giants in draft positioning real soon.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the Giants, honestly, this is another takeaway that I've had this week. With the players being asked, do you agree with the decision? Dexter Lawrence has said that the best quarterback on the roster isn't playing. They asked Brian Burns, do you think winning is still the top priority for this team? He says, I don't really know. I think this is the most blatant and obvious tank job that we've maybe ever seen in the NFL. I think this is it. I mean, they skipped over the second string quarterback to go to QB3 for the final 7 games of the season while they're 2-8 and barreling towards a top pick. Meanwhile, they're also sending scouts to Colorado practice to scout Shadir Sanders, not just games, but to practice. Joe Shane has been to 2 of those games personally himself. It's very clear and obvious to me that this is a tank job. Like, that's how I feel about it. And whatever, dude, like, I don't support tanking necessarily. I don't think it's good for the integrity of the game, but if you can do it in a way that's, covered in a thin veil like the Giants are doing, then go ahead and do it and fix this franchise. This might be the only way to get it done. So, whatever, I'm happy for it.
There we go. I'm sure you gotta run and do some articles and reaction and stuff like that, so we can wrap if you want, because this was some unexpected stuff on Big Apple Blitz this morning.
No doubt. This just sent my day into a whirlwind, but a happy one. I'm very, very elated. I mean, could we ask for anything better? Breaking news on the pod, on the show. This was excellent. Excellent
stuff. We'll clip the reaction, tweet it out. Good stuff from our guy Anthony. As always, we'll be back on Monday. We'll see what happens on Monday. Maybe the Giants will have a win. Maybe the Tommy Cutlets will throw for like 400 yards and they'll win. That'd be fun. And yeah, who knows? Probably Jets have another article come out. So regardless, that'll do it for us in this one. Let's send Anthony off to react to this over on Fireside Giants and on the website. That'll do it. I'm Matt. He's Anthony. We'll catch you next time.